Blessings upon our beloved Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we acknowledge that we're on Aboriginal land and we pay our respects to the elders past and present. So we continue inshallah with the book of assistance, with the Imam al-Haddad's book of assistance, and we're on page 94, Mahak? No, 95 right at the beginning, top of the page, 95. So in Arabic it says, قال المؤلف رحمه الله رضي الله عنه وعنكم نفعنا به وبكم. It says واحذر أن تلعن مسلما أو بهيمة أو جماد أو شخصا بعينه وإن كان كافرا إلا إن تتحقق أنه مات على الكفر كفرعون وأبي جهل وعلمت أن رحمة الله لا يناله بحال كإبليس. وقد ورد أن اللعنة إذا خرجت من العبد تصعد نحو السماء فتغلق دونها أبوابها ثم تنزل إلى الأرض فتغلق دونها أبوابها ثم تجيء إلى الملعون فإن وجدت فيه مساغا وإلا رجعت إلى قائلها على قائلها عفوا. So if we look at the top of the page, on page 95, the Mu'allif says, the author says, Rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy on him and upon you, and may Allah be pleased with him and pleased with you, may Allah benefit us from him and him from us, inshallah. Beware of cursing a Muslim, an animal, an inanimate thing, or any specific person, even if he is a disbeliever, unless you know for certain that he has died a disbeliever, as in the cases of Pharaoh and Abu Jahl, or unless you know that God's mercy will not under any circumstance reach him, as is in the case of the devil. It has been said that the curse uttered by a person ascends toward heaven, but that the gates are locked against it. Then it descends to earth, the gates of which are also locked against it, so that it then goes to the one who was cursed, and either finds him vulnerable to it, in other words deserving of it, or else it recoils against its utterer, the person who spoke it. So if we continue inshallah from where we left off last week, and we try and understand inshallah the how significant it is for an individual to use their tongue, and we've talked about this a while ago now, maybe it was last year, the vices of the tongue, afat al-lisan, and what they can lead a person to. And the Prophet ﷺ, he gave in the hadith, he said that, you know, the Sahaba asked, Ya Rasulullah, will be taken account for by Allah? Will Allah take our account in accordance with what we said? And the Prophet ﷺ grabbed his tongue, and he said, is it not through this tongue, through this piece of flesh? He didn't say, is it not through this? It is only through this, that people get thrown into the hellfire. So the tongue is that soft tissue that it is, yet the results of the soft tissue can be detrimental not only to the speaker but also to the one who's heard, or the one who hears the speaker, or the one who's affected by the speaker. So that's what we focused on, afat al-lisan. I think we spent maybe 10 weeks on it when we did it last year. We spent a long time on it, the vices of the tongue, because it's such a treacherous thing. In other words, treacherous to oneself, treacherous in terms of dangerous. That a person, if they don't have the right understanding of how to use their tongues properly, they don't have the right connection with Allah in the heart, and the result of that is, in other words, one's manifestation of what's in their heart that becomes manifested on their tongue is vile or is evil. Then when that vileness or that evil is returned to the individual that says it. And that's the meaning of that Muslims shouldn't curse, basically, is what's being said here. And shouldn't be damning people to hell, in other words, or saying that people should be excluded from the mercy of Allah from the rahmah of Allah Ta'ala. That's not the role of the believer, as we mentioned, that Allah said to the Prophet of Allah وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, that we were only sent as a mercy to humankind. So if he's our we have to emulate the Prophet of Allah. He's our qudwa, he's our example. We have to emulate him in all shapes and forms. The main reason he was sent was mercy. And if we can't embody that mercy, then what can we embody of the prophetic tradition? What can we embody of Muhammad sallallahu? What can we embody of prophethood? What can we embody of the message sent to us by Allah Azza wa Jalla, the revelation? What can we embody of the Qur'an, because he was the Qur'an walking alayhi salatu wassalam? So that's the question we have to ask ourselves. If we're individuals, if someone's an individual who finds it easy to curse or damn people or whatever it might be, curse people to hell or whatever it might be, put a hex on people, as they also say, or jinx people or whatever the case is, then we have to ask ourselves, do we truly consider ourselves emulators of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? What is the reality of our testimony of faith, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah? And if the reality of that is deficient, in other words, the embodiment of that in our own lives is deficient, then we have to ask ourselves that question. We have to come to the realization in terms of what is our purpose in saying that testimony of faith? What is our purpose of bearing witness not only to Allah Azza wa Jal, but to all of humankind and jinnkind even, that's the road we've taken in life, that's the path we've decided upon. So he says, even an inanimate thing, something that's not even alive in that sense, that doesn't have a ruh, we shouldn't be doing that. We spoke about the story of the Prophet, the hadith of the Prophet of Allah where a lady cursed her camel, and the Prophet of Allah told her, leave the camel, don't ride it anymore, get off the camel because it's been accursed. And once it's accursed, it's free from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, means it's open to shaitan. Shaitan is in control, or one's own devices and one's own vices and one's own egos in control, which is worse than the shaitan in many aspects. It says, إِلَّا, so there's an exception though, إِلَّا إِن تَحَقَّقْتَ أَنَّ مَاتَ عَلَى الْكُفْرِ. Only if you know that person died and they were a disbeliever, like Pharaoh, like Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab. But the thing is, for the believer in this life tries to do things that are beneficial in the next life and in this life. Allahumma atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. So the believer is trying as much as possible to come under the shade of the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. So what is the benefit for the believer to curse Abu Jahl, or to curse Pharaoh, or to curse Haman, or to curse Namrud, or to curse all these different people that went against the prophets that we know they died when al-Billah off the deen? Well, what benefit does that bring to an individual? Zero benefit. All it is a sign of frustration. When someone curses someone, it's generally a sign of frustration, and the individual doing the cursing may think that they're frustrated with the other individual, but in reality, they're frustrated with Allah. In reality, they want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make something happen. They want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to affect that other individual. And for them, it's not coming quick enough. And so what do? They start cursing that individual. So basically what they're saying to Allah Azza wa Jal is, you're not quick enough. You're not doing what I want. And the believer should never be in that state. That's the antithesis of the state of the believer. The believer is constantly looking for the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal in terms of being in tune with Allah, with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants in any given circumstance and situation. So when the believer goes out of that state, goes out of that fold and begins cursing, begins damning people, then when Allah Azza wa Jal, they've actually disjointed themselves with harmony. In other words, they're disharmonious with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They've left that connection with Allah Azza wa Jal, and they're when they're unsatisfied with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed. And that's not the state of the believer. That's part of Iman, Shu'ab al-Iman. Al-Imani billahi wa malaikati wa kutubi rusuli wal qadru khayruhu wa sharru wa khayri wa sharri. So part of the 6 principles of Iman, the 6 tenets of Iman, is that a person is satisfied and believes in the qadr, the destiny, the qadr, the destiny of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has determined for each situation and each individual. So that's why we don't get into that situation, that frustration that we feel when something doesn't go our way. It shouldn't allow us to do la'na, whether it's on an individual. The camel, why did the lady give it la'na? Because it wasn't, why did she curse it? Because it wasn't doing what she wanted. And the camel, it's a beast that Allah created. And it's got a mind of its own, so to speak. It works on instinct more than mind. So she hastened, stajilant. She hastened. She was quick, and that's from amal what? Al-ajalu min ash-shaytan. That being in a hurry and being flustered And sweating, what's the shaitan made out of? Smokeless fire. Right? So when a person's hot and they're sweating and they're stressed and frustrated, the shaitan's on them. When a person's cool, calm and collected, then the angels are with them, inshallah. So the manifestation of one's state is in one's body. And if we don't listen to the signs in our bodies, we start breathing heavy, breathing quickly, panting, whatever the case might be. Unless you're doing exercise, then you're supposed to do that. But if you're not doing exercise, and it's something, a process, a thought process, a state of mind, a state of heart, and that's going on, that's a questionable, that's a sign. Your body's telling you, Allah's telling you that, hold on a second, pull back. Remember Allah. Esta'id billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. Say, a'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. Otherwise, people will make the wrong decisions, including cursing things. Okay, or the shaitan. There's a hadith that says the shaitan loves it when you curse him, because what you're actually doing is attributing power to the shaitan. La'natullah ala shaitan. He did what power does he have? What power does the devil have? Inna kayda shaitana kana da'ifa. The machinations, Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Qur'an, the machinations of the shaitan are in fact weak, powerless, dysfunctional. That's the state of the shaitan. But when we say, La'natullah, Allah yal'an shaitan, may Allah curse the shaitan, then we're saying, wait a minute, he's got power over us, and he gets happy. So what do we say? A'udhu billahi as-sami' alim, a'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. Ya Allah, I seek refuge in you from the shaitan. Don't give the shaitan power. Don't give him any credit for anything. Doesn't deserve that credit. It's gone against Allah. وَبِعِزِّكَ وَجَلَالِكَ. He swore by Allah. It doesn't make sense. He's nuts. He's not normal, the shaitan. He swore by Allah that he's going to get the children of our Adam's children, our great-grandfather's children, he's going to take them off the path. He swore by Allah. Like, how does that make sense? That's like saying, I'm trying to lose weight and hanging out at donut shop. It doesn't make sense. You're trying to lose weight. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. Impossible. I want to study and hanging out at the cafe all day. They're mutually exclusive. Those things don't go together. That's the state, because jealousy and envy and rancor and haughtiness, takabbur, they're not. Someone who's like that is not in their right state of mind. They're a state of insanity to an extent. They're a mental illness to an extent. So that's why what he's saying doesn't make sense. He says, by your majesty and by your might, I want to get him off the path. So why give him any power? Why give him any power? Why allow him to overcome one? That's why we say, A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. And then, most importantly, the person that curses, the curse uttered by a person ascends toward heaven, but the gates are locked against it. They don't want curses up there. So it comes back down to the ground. It descends back to earth, the gates of which are also locked. It doesn't belong there. So what happens? Then it goes to the one who was cursed. So someone cursed an individual. The individual who was the subject of the curse, it goes to them. And if they're deserving, because if they're not deserving of the curse, how can Allah curse someone who's close to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala? So someone is a prophetic emulator, or she's a prophetic emulator. They're close to the Prophet ﷺ. They live their life according to the sunnah of the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. They do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Then someone curses them for whatever reason. How can Allah let that curse occur and happen and hit that person and affect that individual who's close to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala? So if that person's undeserving, vulnerable to it, the word in Arabic is a little bit different. In wajadtu fi. So if that person is deserving of that vulnerable, in other words, they're not close to Allah Azza wa Jalla, they've got some weakness in their connection for whatever reason. If that individual who was the subject of the curse is not deserving of the curse, what happens? Curse goes back onto the person who made it in the first place. If that's not enough, it's not enough discouragement, and there isn't enough discouragement in any language, whether it's Arabic or English. So why bother with cursing? When Allah doesn't like it, and it's not the prophetic way, and even if an individual curses someone, it shows frustration with Allah Azza wa Jal himself, and the qadr of Allah, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed and destined. And then worse than that, maybe one could say, which maybe not, that if a person curses somebody and that person's undeserving, then what happens? That curse comes back to the one who spoke it. It's heavy duty, really. He goes on, وَعَلَيْكَ بِالتَّأْلِيفِ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَتَحْبِيبِ بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ بِإِظْهَارِ الْمَحَاسِنِ وَسَتْرِ الْقَبَائِحِ. Effect reconciliation between the hearts of the believers and cause them to love each other by bringing to light their virtues and concealing their vices. He goes on, he says, وَعَلَيْكَ بِإِصْلَاحِ ذَاتِ الْبَيْنِ فإن في الإصلاح فضلا يزيد على فضل النفل من الصلاة والصيام ولا سيما بين الوالد وولده والقريب والقرابة. قال الله تعالى إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم. So there's a hadith that says that this is the most rewarding act that an individual can do, is to bring two believers together. If two believers have a misunderstanding between them, or animosity between them, or there's a disagreement or a conflict between them, the best act, the most beloved act, the hadith says actually, the most beloved act to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is islah dhatil bayn, which means to rectify between two individuals. It's one of the most beloved acts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's look at the practicality. We understand that, of course, because kalbunyan al-marsus, we're like metal stuck together, all these things, all the different things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Qur'an about we're brothers and sisters in spirituality, we're brothers and sisters in deen, we're brothers and sisters in the path that we follow to Allah Azza wa Jal, we're brothers and sisters in the emulation of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. We're brothers and sisters, we're brothers standing together in the salat. We go up and down, ruku' and sujood and qiyam at the same time. And all these things are done together. We're brothers and sisters in the fasting. We fast at the same time. We're brothers and sisters when we go to Hajj. We're all circumambulating the Kaaba at the same time. We're brothers and sisters in zakat. We may have to make sure that we find those 8 classes of people when we have money and give it to those individuals. We're brothers and sisters in the recitation of Qur'an, that if a person recites Qur'an, that we should listen to that. We should listen with intent to benefit. So we're brothers and sisters in the remembrance of Allah. If Allah, someone reminds us of Allah by their action, by their appearance, by their state, then together we're closer to Allah Azza wa Jalla. So that spiritual bond, the more that we can work on that in a practical manner to maintain it. So the spiritual bond is one thing, that's inshallah unbreakable. But the bond, practically speaking, between individuals and their interactions on a social or a communal level, our role is, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, to rectify any deficiencies in that if it's possible, or to make sure that it doesn't happen in the first place. And the practical aspect I wanted to talk about is in the first one. He says, effect reconciliation between the hearts of the believers and cause them to love each other by bringing to light their virtues and concealing their vices. So this is what happens. Someone mentions so-and-so. Oh, whatever, Ahmed. Ahmed, he's this and he's that. And Yahi. And then later on, what do they tell you? Oh, I was only telling the truth. Who asked you for the truth? What truth do you know? What truth do you know? You know the truth about Ahmed a year ago, 6 months ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 weeks ago, 10 minutes ago. What truth do you know? The truth about people is not for you and me to understand. Leave that to Allah Azza wa Jal. We have dealings of husn al-dhan. Our dealings between believers is based on giving people the benefit of the doubt, except in 3 circumstances, which most of you should know. Help me out. Business.
Marriage.
Ahlan. Marriage. Don't just take things on the benefit of the doubt. And?
Seeking knowledge from.
Right, who you taking knowledge from. Except for those 3 things, don't go around telling your so-called truth. There's no need for it. Someone's just yabbering or jabbering or frustrated, it's the exact opposite. You know that Ahmed, for example, Hash al-Ism, to mention or whatever, Zayd. They always mention Zayd because it's better than Ahmed's the name of the Prophet of Allah. So Zayd, for example. All right, he's done this, but someone's come to complain about him. What's our straight away? We want to jump on the bandwagon. Zayd, yeah, last time I was there and he did this, and last time I heard he did that, and I saw blood. Why are you jumping on the bandwagon for? People don't need a bandwagon. People, when they're upset, they're emotionally unstable. For whatever reason, and rightfully so in many circumstances. They're looking to get what? Back to their emotional stability. So you're dragging them further away from their emotional stability by siding with them. Don't side with the person. Say, Zayd, man, I don't know him like that. Really? I know. Even if you don't. This is one of the times when you can lie. And we've spoken about this also before. This is one of the times when it's halal and mustahsan and sunnah even to lie. To say, well, no, what do you mean? No, Zayd, I took your money, he didn't pay you back the money, man. Last time I borrowed money off him, whether you did or you didn't, and he paid me back straight away. Maybe the guy's sick. Maybe his family's sick. Maybe he's in some sort of debt. Maybe he just lost his job. Maybe 70 excuses. And so that's the prophetic way of dealing with other members of our community, dealing with brothers and sisters. It's not the truth as we think it is. And most of the time, it's not even the truth. It's just kila wa qal. He said, she said. Gossip, in other words. So if someone comes to you complaining about Zayd, take Zayd's side because Zayd's not there. And then, if you know that's going on, go and see Zayd. So I was with Amr. This is the examples they use to pick. So they don't pick the general names. Go see and say, oh, I was with Amr and the guy loves you, or the lady, she thinks you're great. The sister, the two sisters, right? She thinks you're fantastic and she was talking good about you. And just that is enough, generally, because believers are generally soft. And they don't want, most human beings, believers or otherwise, don't want conflict. They don't want conflict in their life. They want to live a peaceful life. They want to live a harmonious life. They want to live a blessed life. They want to live a life free from stress and free from undue emotional strain and pressure. Everyone wants that. No one wants to live a life of difficulty and hardships and tribulations and tests. So go there and lay the groundwork. So when they see each other, there may or may not be money. And even better than that, if it's an issue of money, all right, it's okay. I know you've got heaps of money and you count it. How many times you look on your app to see and type your password. Well, you don't even need to type your password in these days. The new apps, you just slide it and it tells you how much is in there. Then I get paid. Well, we love our money. That's it. That's the world we live in. We live in a commercial, capitalistic, consumer society. That's naturally going to happen to us. But use it to buy Jannah. Use it to buy the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, even if it's between two individuals, especially when it's between two individuals. Why aren't you paying him back? Look, man, I don't have any money, this, that, this. Don't worry. Go talk to the person. Look. And especially if you've got some connection with that other person. Look, so-and-so owes you money. I know that person. Look, they've got a bit of hardship. If I pay the money, would you accept? No, that's a little bit less. It's all right. I'll pay it for you. Get your money back. But as long as you two bury the hatchet, as they say. I think that's an American expression. So, whatever. Let bygones be bygones. I think that's an American expression too. I don't know any Aussie ones. Just she'll be right, mate. Just let it slide, right? Just let it slide between yourselves so there's no animosity. Because animosity grows. What happens is, this person starts blabbing to this group of people, and that person starts blabbing to that group of people. And those group of people, because now there's a khabar, there's news, oh, I better go tell someone about it, and then all of a sudden, the disparity and differentiation happens in a community or in a society with Allah Azza wa Jal. That's not something that Allah Azza wa Jal wants. So that's how it's done, practically speaking. Don't worry about your truth. Leave your truth between you and the truth, subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-haq. Otherwise, just try and bring, inshallah, Azza wa Jal, reconcile between people. So the Imam says that, restore good relations between them, for such a thing is more meritorious than, I didn't read that, sorry. Restore good relations between them, for such a thing is more meritorious than supererogatory prayers and fasts, especially when effected between father and his son, or a man and his relatives. God the Exalted has said, the believers are but brothers, make peace, therefore, between your two brothers. So it's more general than what's said in the English, in terms of what's in the Arabic, because it's better than supererogatory. In other words, nafil, extra prayers. The sunnah prayers have to be done, but it's more meritorious than worship, basically extra types of worship, or fasting, because it maintains relations in the community. It keeps the believers together as one unit, inshallah azza wa jal. And Allah azza wa jal has said, al-jam'atu rahma wal-firqatu adab. The unity of the Muslims brings the rahmah of Allah, and the disunity of the Muslims brings, wa'na'udhu billah, the wrath of Allah azza wa jal. It brings adab, punishment. Wa'na'udhu billah. So, he says, and especially between, he says walid wa walidi, but it's got, in the Arabic it can mean both. So son and daughter, children and parents, basically. If there's issues between children and parents, then if you can affect the circumstance, then you should do so. Or between relatives, and it says qarib wa qariba, qaribatu. Two relatives, they're people, they're cousins, they're whatever. I'll tell you this great story about this young kid. He's only 20 years old, mashallah. He prays, alhamdulillah, he's a good kid. There was issues between the cousins. So what he did was he made an Oztag team. MashaAllah. He made an Oztag team, and then he invited all the cousins, and he told the cousins, look, come and join the team. And then when they all agreed to join, they said, oh look, that cousin's going to be there. So the one who pulls out is going to look bad. And no one wants to look bad. And they played in the team, and they got back together, and they're all friends, alhamdulillah. The animosity's gone. They're not like best buddies or whatever, but the animosity has gone between them. He's 20 years old, mashallah. 20 years old, mashallah. And that's the type of thing. Doesn't necessarily mean just going to talk to him. Make an event, make a barbecue, make an excuse, make something. Use your mind, in other words. Like we use our minds to, find things to post and like and whatever. Use our mind, inshallah, azza wa jal, to keep the harmony between the believers, bi-idhnillah azza wa jal. He says that the believers are but brothers. أَصْلِحُ بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. So make sure that you keep or conciliate. What is the word he uses here? Therefore, make peace. Salaha means to make upright. Make it straight, in other words, fix, repair. So let's make sure that there's reconciliation and conciliation between, inshallah, azza wa jal, the relatives. وَيَاكَ وَإِفْسَادِ ذَاتِ الْبَيْنِ بِالنَّمِيمَ وَالْغِيبَةِ وَنَحْوِهَا مِمَّا يُوجِبُ التَّنَافُرُ وَالتَّدَابُرُ فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَظِيمٌ. He says, beware of sowing discord through slander, backbiting, or anything else such as will result in antagonism and aversion. For this is considered an immense sin by Allah Azza wa Jal. And what is it other than this, when a'udhu billah Azza wa Jal, that's dividing the ummah? What is it other than this that's breaking up families? What is it other than this that is destroying husbands and wives? Breaking up relationships between brothers and sisters. Breaking up relationships between leaders and the led. Nothing, it's words. And it's not even words, most of the time it's just missed thoughts, or not giving someone the benefit of the doubt, and building upon that, when a whole story about how this was evil, and what's breaking up countries, what's destroying nations other than that, other than the words that we hear from individuals. So we need to be careful. We need to be careful about that. And we need to make sure that we're not part of that. Because those two things, and namima wal ghiba, namima, there's no doubt about it. Namima, he calls it slander. Okay, in other words, defamation of character. To make up something about someone that isn't true with the intention of sowing discord between people, it's a major sin, it's a kaba'ir. And ghiba, some scholars, backbiting someone, some scholars say it's a major sin, others don't, but it's still heavy duty. And the Imam here, we haven't got time, it's nearly Maghrib, isn't it? The Imam here says it's worse than fornication or adultery. 7:51, is it Maghrib? Yeah, it is.
51, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. So whoever needs to make wudu, so we can pray. If you want, just make ayah. You want to make it? Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wa salatu wa salam ala khayrina wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this deen in a specific way. There's a sunnah of the Prophet of Allah, which means the way the Prophet of Allah does things. And there's a sunnah of Allah Azza wa Jal. There's the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wrote whatever's going to happen in existence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created the qalam, the pen, and the lawh, the tablet, and the qalam. Allah Azza wa Jal ordered the qalam, the pen, to write. And every single thing, every transaction, every bodily reaction, every chemical, physical, everything that happened in the whole unit, every thought that anyone had, any blinking of an eye, any beating of a heart, was all recorded there. And then when Allah Azza wa Jal decreed to send the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, that what the Qur'an that was there was given to Amir al-Wahi, Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam, to the Archangel Gabriel, and that the Archangel Gabriel, he transmitted to the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. And the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, he was a special individual. Allah Azza wa Jal made him special. That he transmitted whatever was given to him word for word from Allah Azza wa Jal through Sayyidina Jibreel. And there were times as well when the Prophet ﷺ was directly communicated to by Allah Azza wa Jal, and there was the Isra wal Mi'raj, the Mi'raj. To Allah, he went to Allah and he saw Allah Azza wa Jal, different narrations, but we could say inshallah they saw Allah and Allah gave him things there, alayhi salatu wassalam. And so this deen is not my deen, it's Allah's deen. I'm a follower, inshallah Azza wa Jal. It's not your deen in the sense that, and what I mean by that is it's not our deen to interpret as we please, unless we're of those people that are authorized to interpret the deen. And so in seeking of knowledge, which is the essence of the faith of Allah Azza wa Jal, seeking and understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He does subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He doesn't do, what He maintains, what He destroys subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the sifat, the qualities of Allah, and the Prophet of Allah how his life was, and the rulings of the deen, so that we can inshallah Azza wa Jal embody those in our lifetimes. That's the essence of our deen. And what the scholars have said, that half of knowledge is saying I don't know, la adri. That's half of knowledge. So in terms of our dealings that we have with people on a daily basis, whether it's our classmates or our workmates or people we regularly travel together with on transport, or people we socialise with or we do recreational activities with, whatever it might be, that we understand that Islam is in the spotlight. We understand. I was at a multi-faith function just the other day, and there were people from all, basically 7 or 12, 15 different faiths, and we were on a panel, and they were asking questions, and I turned to my panel members and said, or colleagues on the panel, and while they were asking a question, I turned to them all and I said, you'll all agree that Islam is in a different light than any other faith at the moment. And no one said anything. So we're under the spotlight. There's no reason to try and hide that fact. There's no reason to try and beat around the bush, as they say. There's no reason to try and deny that. That's the reality. So that means we as Muslims are under the microscope. That means we are Muslims, and that's really not a bad thing for us. All right, there are difficulties associated with that, don't get me wrong. But for the believer, the one who's traveling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's not totally disastrous. Because it gives you a chance as a believer to express who you are. People want to know who you are. People want to discuss with you, what is this Islam? What is this ruling and what's that ruling, and why do Muslims do that? And I heard this about Islam, and why do you do that? And etc., etc. So within your capacity, you need to answer as much as you can. But what is outside of your capacity, you need to leave alone. And so all of the things we're seeing, basically, that Muslims are being vilified for, are generally of our own doing. Yeah, the misconceptions and the misunderstandings, and sometimes they might even be purposefully done. But it's the way that we respond to them that determines how people will accept or otherwise what we say about our faith. So as an example, that Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَضْرِبُهُنَّ, about women, that if this happens and that happens and that doesn't happen, then they're entitled to, the word in Arabic is وَضْرِبُهُنَّ. But what does it mean? In the Orientalist translation, it means hit. Beat is another translation. But just because that's how it's translated in English, doesn't mean that's what it means in Arabic. In Arabic, the meaning of it is symbolic. it's a symbolic thing to say that, look, for you and me, it's over. This marriage is finished. And so, if we understand, if we're authorities on our deen, inshaAllah Azza wa Jalla, and we understand, then we equate it to something that others understand. For example, when the queen gives a knighthood, what does the queen do, or the king? The queen gets a sword and taps a person's shoulder. Yes? The person kneels down, you know, what is it? Knight so-and-so, whatever be knight. There's a special saying she says. It's like that. Doesn't the queen get a sword? And she puts it on, so isn't that, well, the queen's a, mass murderer, what is that we're going to start saying? She's violent? No, it's not. It's symbolic. It's symbolic, as is that passage in the Qur'an. And don't worry about me, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of exegetes, of those who explain the Qur'an have said it. It's thousands upon thousands. There's no violence, there's none of these things. And it goes on to Sharia law. We said it, I think, last week. If you're not an expert, don't get into it. So look, I'll get back to you shortly. Or here's a source that you can look up and you find out for yourself and get back to me. We'll both be enlightened. It's not something to be ashamed about to say, I don't know. You're not expected to know everything about your faith. I don't know everything about Islam. There's no one after the Prophet of Allah that knows every little thing about Islam. Even Sayyidina Umar, Allahumma arda anhu. Even Sayyidina Abu Bakr. Sayyidina Umar said there was 30 odd things here more. He said, I wish the Prophet talked more about inheritance. I wish the Prophet talked more about this. Sayyidina Umar, Allahumma arda anhu. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, when the Hafaz, those who memorized Qur'an, started dying, they said the Qur'an's going to be like, he didn't know what to do. So he called a congregation of, actually, Sayyidina Umar and one other Sahabi, I forget who it was, maybe it was Sa'd al-Mardan, I forget who it was, came to him and said, we've got to write that's it. Those parchments of the Qur'an that we've got to collect them. He said, I'm not going to do something the Prophet didn't do, alayhi salatu wasalam. But all the Sahaba said, what are we going to do? So even he didn't have all the answers. So don't expect that you're going to have all the answers. And if you don't, it's okay. Ask any, like I deal with in my profession as a lawyer, which is like, it's equatable to Islamic law because it's jurisprudence. It's all jurisprudence, it's all law. So sometimes I see barristers, they've been a barrister for 35 years. 35 years, and you ask them, I don't know. They're not ashamed to say it. And they get paid like $500-600 an hour. And they're not ashamed to say, I don't know, I'll get back to it, I'll do some research. Why should we be ashamed to say that? Why should we put the deen in a situation, not me, people are going to forget me, but they're going to remember that that's what Muslims think. That's what Muslims believe. That's what Islam is about. And worse than that, that's what God wants. Imagine something I say, Allahumma la taj'alna fitnatan lilladina kafaru. Ya Allah, don't make me a trial or a tribulation for those that disbelieve. So don't put yourself in that situation. Rather than trying to be up, I'm the only one that knows. And I mean, as a Muslim, I'm a Muslim, that's it. Muslim, alhamdulillah, that's it, I know everything. No, we're the best. No one's better than me, no one's better than Muslims. Well, a'udhu billah. That's the antithesis of what the Prophet taught. He was humble, alayhi salatu wasalam. Always showed humility. And da'wah, the propagation or the invitation to Islam, it's not about showing you're better. It's not what it's about. It's about connecting with another human being and having shafaqah, empathy for that human being and wanting the best for another human being. Whether you come from from a humble situation or a position of meekness, or that you are educated, or that you do have good examples, or you're a funny person, or you tell stories, or you help people, or you wake up at night and pray for people. So we need to get that out of our heads. I don't know where it comes from, that we have to know everything. You don't have to know. It's good to know. It'd be great. I'd love to know everything about Islam. First one to know, but I don't. And nor do I claim to. So that you have to be able to pull out of that situation in a dignified manner as well, and to maintain the dignity of the faith. And if the person says, well, you're a Muslim, you should know everything. Say, you're an Australian. Can you tell me section 15 of the Constitution? They can't. Even constitutional lawyers, they might be the only ones that know. Or professors who teach constitutional law. No one knows everything about everything. That doesn't work that way. So make sure that when you are calling to Allah Azza wa Jal, when you are inviting people in Allah Azza wa Jal to understand the reality of their existence in this life, and the reality of their Creator, and the reality of returning to Him Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that you have that in mind. And look, if someone in our community makes a mistake, don't crucify them either. If you want to make the situation, send them a message. Send them a message, look, brother, I know, or sister, I know how it is, etc., etc. Why maybe you try this, maybe don't try that, whatever the case might be. So, in that sense, what I want you to think, not only that aspect, but we're our own worst enemy. It's not anyone's fault. No one's putting the words that we're saying into our mouths. We're saying them. They're coming out of our mouths, and people who are already, unfortunately, who are already negatively affected by the propaganda about Islam and about our deen and about Muslims are only getting, their fears and their misinformation is only being justified by the words said by Muslims. But bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, you as an individual and the dealings you have with people on a daily basis, or whether it's on social media or whatever, can affect that positively by the little or the much that you know, the little or the vast amount that you know. But it's the way that you say it. ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة. Call to the way of your Lord with wisdom. It's not about being the professor of this and the PhD and having doctorates. If you do, it's fantastic. And if you can get it, do it. But if you don't lament. Don't say, oh, I wish and I wish I could. So do what you can with what you've got. Personal experience, I find, especially when it's a personal situation, is a fantastic way to get through to people. Well, I don't know what Islam says, but my experience is, etc., etc., etc. I don't know what the deen says, but this is the reason I do what I do. It makes me feel this way. I was like this, and when I started practicing this aspect of my faith, I became like that. Or I know a person, anecdotal evidence, and we know that's not something that can be relied on, but at least it passes a message across. At least it allows that connection between that individual and you, rather than them seeing something on TV or seeing something in their feed or whatever it might be that is misleading or even worse, damning against Islam. Any questions about any of that? Alhamdulillah.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك